Should you buy a business plan for your visa application? Today, I'm going to explore this subject in detail. And if you're thinking about buying a business plan, or if you even need a business plan for your visa application, presumably a business visa or a startup visa, then this video is definitely for you. So let's get into it. Okay, so before I go into the actual topic, I will give you a very brief introduction about me. I moved to the UK when I was 17 on a student visa. When I got my master's degree in law and I was 22 years old, I applied for a business visa known as the Tier 1 Graduate Entrepreneur Visa in the UK by virtue of my tech startup. And obviously, I did produce a business plan for my business visas until I settled in the UK through the same startup. Now I work as a consultant and I do consult on business plans, and I also do write a limited number of business plans every year. So I've worked with a lot of founders and I've been a tech founder myself, so this is my specialty, and you can pretty much trust my word on this when I talk about buying a business plan, and I will give you some warnings. So let's get into it. First of all, I would say that buying a business plan is not inherently wrong, okay? There are circumstances where it might make sense to actually get a professional to write your business plan, such as me. However, those circumstances are very limited. Let's say, for example, you're really short on time. You just don't have enough time to dedicate to writing a business plan. Then it makes sense to outsource it to a professional. However, what you need to be aware of is outsourcing this. It's not the case of giving a description to a writer and then they just go away for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever time frame it may be, and then they just produce a business plan. This is a process that you need to be actively involved in throughout every stage. Remember, this is your business at the end of the day, okay? Nobody knows your business as well as you do. And if you don't know all the details about your business, you may want to reconsider that business. So there is that one. And also, what I would also say is, if you don't have any experience in writing a business plan, so let's say you've never written one before, let's say you have some business acumen, you pretty much have done some form of commercial projects before, but you've never actually written one yourself, then in that case, it may also make sense to outsource it. But then again, remember, you need to be continuously involved in the process. See, when I take a business plan writing project, I take a very limited number. So I take about 12 projects per year. So because I write each one myself and they take a lot of time, so I practically can't take anymore. But when I do take them, I conduct regular calls with clients, okay? So on a weekly or bi-weekly basis at the very least, because they need to be involved in all the stages of the business plan. So there is that one. And lastly, I would say, if you need a business plan for your startup visa, one thing, it's all about the content of the business plan, of course. It's about what's in the business plan and the viability of your project. Of course, that's the core focus and emphasis. So if you have a viable commercial concept, then other details are of secondary importance. However, remember this, first impressions always matter, okay? So when, let's say you submit your business plan to a governmental body or an external body such as the endorsing bodies in the UK for the UK Innovator Founder Visa, it's very important that you give out a very good impression of the business plan, okay? So, and that is how you present it. So if you just write a very basic thing in 30 or 40 PDF pages using Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or something, that's not going to give a very good impression of your business plan, right? And, it will literally bore the reader into it. They won't admit this to you, okay? But it will become a boring task to go through, a a business plan that's just piled up pages of words and some graphs and some numbers. Okay, so it's really good to make it visually appealing, and there's a range of software, like external software, that you can use to do that. So again, leading to another circumstance where buying a business plan might make sense is, let's say you're not familiar with design software, or you really don't have the time to do it, then it may make sense to outsource it to somebody who is proficient with these tools, and they can make a visually appealing business plan for you. So there is that. Okay, now we have outlined the circumstances in which it may make sense to actually buy a business plan. Now let's go into why buying a business plan for a visa application may be a bad idea. So, first and foremost, there is a considerable number of business plan writers out there. Okay, there's quite a few. A simple Google search will show you that. However, let's say, commercial expertise of these people is not necessarily up to the point, and you may not even be able to verify that with them. And writing a business plan is something that really does require commercial expertise. It's not sufficient to be good at writing or good at designing something pretty for your business plan. It's really not enough. Okay, so you really need that commercial expertise. This is something that I offer because I've scaled a tech startup to 30 UK cities. I've obtained several business visas for it, and I've obtained settlement and British citizenship through that. And we almost did a funding round with a venture capital firm as well until COVID-19 happened, but that's the story for a different video. Anyways, so going back to the main point, commercial expertise, really important to have this, because if they don't have it, then it's not really good. Number two, there is a lot of bad writers out there. Okay, I've had clients coming to me, let's say for some of the countries that I focus on. I'm not going to go into specific details, of course, for the sake of privacy, but they came to me and they spent, I don't know, £2,000 or £3,000 on this really bad looking standard business plan that was made with a PowerPoint, and they didn't even have any form of midpoint contact with these writers, basically. And obviously I think we can guess what the result of those applications were. So there's a lot of bad business plan writers out there, and it's really important that if you really want to proceed with this, then you consider that one. Another point that I wish to outline is, if you have the time, and even if you don't have the required skills to write one, I would highly recommend and I recommend this to every prospective and current client that I have, that they write the plan themselves. And I'll tell you why. First of all, you will acquire a skill that's directly relevant to your work. And life is about learning skills, and it's a very good opportunity for you to develop that skill. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we go back to one of the other points that I mentioned, and that is, nobody knows your business as well as you do. Nobody does. And if somebody does know your business as well as you do, then you have bigger things to worry about, obviously. But nobody will know your business in the details that you do, okay? And obviously having that knowledge will ensure that you include all those details in the business plan. So ultimately, what I would say is, with the exception of some rare circumstances, I would advise, just my opinion, I would advise to entrepreneurs who are seeking business or startup visas to write their business plans themselves. However, what would be very beneficial for them is to work with an expert on that business plan. Okay, so that expert doesn't actually write your plan, but what they do is they provide an objective analysis and feedback on your business plan and project. This is perhaps the optimal outcome and the ideal scenario. And again, this is something that I offer to clients, and of course, it will cost you a lot less. At least with me, it will cost you a lot less, because if I do take business plan writing projects, it will come at a cost. Again, this is my expertise and I'm putting my time. So obviously, then I need to charge for that project accordingly. However, with the review part, what's better is that you're not completely alone in the process, and if there are issues with your business plan, let's say if you work with me, then I'm able to advise you on it as a consultant, but not a business plan writer. It will cost you far less, and you also develop skills throughout writing the process, and the process of writing the business plan. And most importantly, you won't have to deal with the risk of losing your money for a work that is of very low standard. So I hope that helps. And I would say then, as the conclusion and the final word, I would advise, per my personal opinion, to entrepreneurs to write their own business plans with the help of an expert, but not to outsource it completely to a business plan writer. Nothing wrong with it. Of course, there are scenarios where a business plan writer could be very helpful, and so I'm not really disagreeing with the entire concept of business plan writing and business plan writers. There may be some good ones out there. However, for the reasons that I stated, I would principally advise founders to write their own business plans. I hope that helps, and keep tuned for the next video. See you later.